The Walking Dead Season 5 Episode 14, Spend. Like, not everybody has to actually hate Chris. Like, they don't have to just, like, bring a guy in and then kill him, in the same season. And that's what happened. We lost Noah in this episode, and I don't know what it was about his death. I think it was just the way they did it. It wasn't even the gruesome portion of it. Like, I know that affected a ton of people, like the way they had like the prosthetic where the zombies were eating him and they were like ripping him open and stuff, and like part of his mouth was just like completely ripping open and stuff while the tongue was moving and all that. But honestly, for me, I think what I felt was very similar to the way Glenn felt. Like, the way he looked, it was kind of how I felt. It was just like, I guess it was so soon. We've lost, seriously, 4 people this season. And they weren't just like, random people we didn't give a crap about. Like, Noah was the newest person, but honestly, when was the last time they introduced her? When have they ever introduced someone and then killed them off in that same season who, wasn't a bad guy? And even with the villains, unless it's like, I guess the Marauders from last season that Daryl was with, those are really some of the only people, and like some of the random people that, aren't like main villains, but any main villain seems to survive, sometimes past the season. I mean, we've only had the governor so far, but they don't just have people come in and then leave out. They don't do that with people that join the main group, for sure. That's never happened. And I think that's why it affected me so much when I saw him get killed, because it was a really dramatic scene. It was like they already lost someone, and I thought that's going to be the death of this episode. They're going to lose a character that we aren't really attached to, like, in any way. Like, we don't really know this character. We haven't seen this character really do anything except kind of be a dick. And in this episode, I actually liked the guy because he learned his lesson. Like, honestly, he was like, in the last time he was with Glenn and Noah, he was kind of a dick. It was like, this is what we do. This is how we do things. We run stuff. And then, Glenn pulled a Matrix on him and, dodged that punch, like his Spidey sense went off or something. And he changed in this episode. And it was like, we should listen to Glenn if there's, just in case anything does go wrong. And him screwing up was like a completely honest mistake, because you wouldn't think about the grenade being on the vest and stuff, and he didn't really listen enough to Glenn when he was like, let him get close. And he had a smart idea, like shooting him in the leg. It would kind of give him a certain way to do it. He was still totally wasting bullets. I mean, honestly, it was like they were both they were both invincible, honestly. Like, the zombie, he couldn't get a hit on. The zombie couldn't possibly do anything to him either, because the zombies have like all the armor and stuff, so they have like these ultra thick gloves. They can't scratch you. He obviously had the face thing on. He's not just going to be like, let me lift this up and take a bite out of this guy. So really, they were both like in the exact same boat of, I can't harm him, he can't harm me. But he just didn't listen, and he, like I said, he made an honest mistake. But his buddy was just like a complete a-hole, and like he left him, and that was one thing. Like, them not being able to pull him off of 2 super long freaking pipes, like basically stuck through him in 2 separate areas of his body. That's one thing, but it was still a dick move that he left him. But that's one thing. And then them being in the little circle, and I knew, like, oddly enough, I was thinking, like, they're both on opposite sides. Even with what Eugene did when he came around, the first thing I thought was, it's like 2 sides to this coin right now. Like, if one person goes this way, the other person goes that way. And really, it's, 2 versus 1. This guy's going to get killed. And it was like, Glenn had the idea, we'll just break the glass. All you have to do is just, stand still, just hold still, break the glass, no problem. And, he just couldn't do it. He had to get out. He had to escape. And obviously, I hate the guy. I hope he gets killed off sometime really soon. And I think a lot of people have put him in a category with another character that's in this episode. Maybe 2 other characters from this episode. But it was just a really tragic scene to me. Like, just the way they did it. And he's like, I was hoping there was some way he could have gotten out of it. And, it was just like he couldn't. And he was being grabbed by his leg, and he's like, don't let go, and he just gets pulled out. And I didn't think they were going to do anything. I thought it was just going to be that scene where he's being grabbed, or Glenn's like, he's just looking up against the window. And even that alone really affected me, because I did not expect us to lose this character so fast, especially with the beginning. It's like he wants to take on this new role and kind of be like the new architect and learn things and be able to do things to help the community continue to strive in the future. And I thought, like, oh, that's cool. We're going to get to learn more about Noah. We'll get to see him learn things that he doesn't know. And then he dies in the episode, and that in itself was really effective as far as I was concerned. And then, of course, they had it where he was like pushed up against the glass and being bit and stuff. And honestly, like I said, the gruesome stuff, it honestly did nothing to me. It didn't even enhance it, to be completely honest. Aside from the fact that he was screaming when it was happening, like, that had more of an impact to me. Like, the scene, like, right after he's pushed up on the glass and you hear him screaming, but they show Glenn's face, that right there is honestly the most effective part to me, and I can't explain why, but for some reason it's just like we see Glenn's face, and it's like the first time we've seen him really have this effect where, he's really crying and upset and stuff like that, where it's right in his face. It wasn't like with the other characters where they get to have funerals, or with Beth, they were all, of course, shocked and things like that, but it was just a different moment. It was, for lack of a better term, it was flat out an intimate moment, and it was just the two of them, and all he could do was hold on to him with one arm, and that wasn't enough. And it was just a really powerful scene as far as I was concerned. I thought it was incredibly well done. Obviously, I have to hate the scene and the entire episode because we lost a character that was brand new, and that really sucks, but it was definitely a great scene. And I don't think, even like the death with Tyrese, I don't think I was affected as much. Like, I knew it was going to happen, and maybe that was why. And, the stuff with Beth, maybe it's just because in some ways we can kind of guess, like, a character will say a line, and then it's just like, you can just tell it's like, it's guaranteed. It's kind of like The Walking Dead does this, they're gonna do this, and you can see it coming, even if it's only for like 10 seconds. It's like, I don't want to see this, but mentally I can kind of guess it's about to happen. And even then, there was just something about it where it was like, this character is brand new. We already saw a character die. We don't ever see two characters die in one episode. Like, that's incredibly rare, especially if they're actually given names. If it's just like nameless villain here and there, sure, they'll, get blown away 10 times an episode. But when it's characters that are named, even if they've only been in one episode or two episodes beforehand, it makes a real difference. And we already lost one, and then we lost a character that we've known since really the beginning of the season, or like, the first couple episodes this season. And it was just crazy. Like, it was crazy to lose that character. And then, of course, they get back at the very end of this one. And, we almost lost someone else. And I wish I could think of her name right now, and I can't. But we almost lost her. And that did lead to an amazing scene in the warehouse where we got to see Eugene finally step up. And I can't really say be badass, but he tried. He was kind of badass, admittedly. He did carry her out in one arm. And for that being like his first time, or like his second time, I think we saw him shoot a gun like once before, but for this being like the second time he actually was shooting zombies, it was really cool because he was doing it one-handed. He was, for most of them, I think he only did, at most, I think he did 3 shots on one zombie, so it was pretty cool. He got the van and stuff and had the music and distracted all the zombies, so he really stepped up. And he had this moment. He had a chance earlier, and it was like, all right, I was excited when they did like the zoom in on the gun. I'm like, you're shaking, but you got this. And then the other female zombie came and almost bit him, and I was like, I didn't see that coming. So, he lost his chance there, which was fine. He didn't get bit, which I really thought was about to happen. But he didn't get bit, and then he had his moment to kind of step up and be a bit badass. So that was nice to see him kind of take that leap. We also got some really great moments with Abraham, with him taking on the role of like the construction site leader and stuff, which a lot of this stuff was definitely in the comics. The Abraham thing for sure was in the comics. And then the stuff with Carol, it wasn't Carol because she wasn't there in the comics, but the same sort of stuff with just the whole family with like Sam and like the stuff with Rick and the wife and all that stuff is happening exactly like it did in the comics. And I actually really like it because the way they did it with Carol, and obviously she knows abuse and things like that. It was pretty cool, and her connection to the little boy, and the dialogue he had I thought was pretty great. Like when they were cooking, she's like, we're not talking. He's like, we don't have to be friends. It just doesn't have to be quiet. I thought that was a great line because it's like this little kid who he understands these lies. He's not an idiot. He understands lying, and obviously in this situation, he really understands what it means to keep a secret and to know something very serious, and then either be afraid in his case, or just generally speaking, not tell someone else what this secret is. So he's really smart. He understands things. And I thought it was just an amazing line from like this little kid who's like, I'm not saying we have to be friends. Like, I would like for it to not be completely silent though. And he's just, doing small talk. And I thought it was actually pretty cool. A nice little line from him. And that kind of gave us the answers that we were kind of looking for with the stuff with his owl. And it seemed like something random. I thought the husband did it because he saw what happened with Rick, especially when he came to the house and was like, I saw you and stuff like that. It's like, oh crap, it's about to get pretty serious. But it was just really well done. I thought it was really cool to watch, and it's definitely going to be interesting to see. I heard we only have 2 episodes left, which is insane. Like, I feel like they aren't really talking about it too much, but I did also watch it online, so I'm sure they mentioned like 2 episodes left and all that stuff. But I'm really excited. Excuse me. I'm really excited for it. I thought it was a great ending to the episode where Carol is telling Rick, like, you have to kill him. It's the only way that it'll work. And it might end up being the only way, like, especially with it being the series. It could kind of follow the route of the comics, which I still won't spoil. But it could follow its own path as well. Like, a ton of things are different. Characters exist that in the series that don't exist at all in the comic books. Some characters are alive currently that were dead long before in the comic books as well. So things could easily go their own way, and you never really know how it's gonna play out. But I'm incredibly excited for it. And then like the final little thing, like the third character, because we have like the guy who got Noah killed. Of course, we have the husband, who's, I think everyone kind of hated from the beginning. I know I did because I knew what his deal was. And then, he was totally fine. People were just like, he's kind of like a wimpy character, blah, blah, blah. And then in this episode, Father Gabriel just kind of walks himself right over to the hate camp. And he just trashes the entire group. Like, they're horrible people. They don't deserve paradise. Rick is the devil. Like, he disguised himself, and the rest of the group are false apostles and stuff. I don't know what's gonna come out of that. Obviously, we have Maggie, who's like, we have one member of this group, claim to be like false apostles and stuff like that. She hears this information, and she here's how Gabriel feels about all these characters. And then we of course have the leader of Alexandria and what she has to do with this information now. The one little bit of light that came out of that was, it didn't seem like she believed him too much. She honestly kind of just looked like, alright, like, I hear what you're saying, and I understand you feel that way, but like, I don't feel that way. So that was like the one good thing I saw out of that whole conversation, where she was just kind of like, I have a lot to think about. And it wasn't 100% like, I know you're crazy or I don't give a crap, but at least it wasn't 100% I believe you. So that was like the one thing I could take out of it. It seemed more of the, alright, just leave now, than it did like, you make a lot of sense. So I thought that was good. And of course we're going to have a confrontation with that, and who knows what's going to come of Father Gabriel in the series. But he took a really interesting step, and it wasn't the step I thought he was going to take. I was for sure thinking when he was ripping up the Bible that he'd reached a point where he wasn't sure what he should be, especially with the letter. I thought the main point of that was, we're blessed to have you here, and then that kind of triggered, well, this is what I did. Like, right before I was here, I was at the church where I completely lived by myself because I basically damned everybody else. And I kind of thought that's where his storyline was going. And maybe that's what it was. Maybe that's what he felt. And he realized that when he was in the church, he was kind of the devil in disguise because he was, it's Father Gabriel and stuff. And he has all this food from the donation drive and all that stuff. And then he kind of lets everyone else die to protect himself. And in that sense, he was the devil in disguise. And so he knows, I did this terrible thing. And I've seen these people, like when they were at the church, of course, they killed the people from Terminus and stuff. And they hacked them into like little pieces. So he's seen them do some pretty crazy things. He does know what he's talking about a bit. At the same time, he is completely withdrawn from everything on the outside. Admittedly, he's very similar to the people from Alexandria. Like, the only reason the group even found him outside was because that was the first time after, I want to say in the series it's like 2 years or 2.5 years, something like that. After like 2.5 years, that was the first time he'd finally run out of food. And that's the only reason he was even out there when the group came across him. So he's very similar to them, but he's done some really horrible things, just like freaking the group have. And for the most part, theirs is like 100% defensive, and his was admittedly just selfish. His was, I want to protect myself. And, that was really early on, too. Like, everyone was coming to him, and instead he said, basically, it was, no, like, I want to save myself instead of all of you, despite who I'm supposed to be. But he kind of put himself in a very specific little camp by the end of this episode, and we're going to have to really wait and see how things play out. Hopefully, we don't lose yet another character in the next episode, and then I know the next one is supposed to focus on Daryl kind of going out and finding other people and things like that, and he finds something, so it will either kind of give us a little hint towards who the wolves are and all that stuff with, carving W's on zombies' heads and all that crap. Or he'll just end up finding, like, completely more bad guys. Like, who knows? I have to assume it's going to be the wolf stuff because they've been foreshadowing that for, like, a while now, like a couple of episodes. So I'm assuming it's going to be that. Then we have the season finale, which I can imagine what's going to happen out of that. But I will wait until, the end of this week and see who they bring in, what they decide to do with the characters and stuff like that. So I'm excited for next week's episode. This was a great episode, despite losing one of the characters and it being so early, and it being such a shock. Like, I honestly don't feel like a death in this series has affected me this way in a really long time. So, kudos to them for doing it that way. Like, 100% shock value. It's a brand new character. They totally had a way out of it. The guy seemed like, despite his sort of pansy-like attitude where he just takes off, it seemed like he understood, like, alright, he's going to hit the thing, it's going to break, maybe like 1 or 2 hits extra, it'll break, we'll get the heck out of here, no big deal. And, it was still really surprising. Like, he was full on, I'm out of here, and I honestly wasn't expecting that. So, despite losing a character that I was looking forward to getting to know, I still really loved the episode, and there are definitely some great seeds, kind of planted in this episode that are gonna really explode, in the next 2. But I want to know what you guys thought about this one, so please comment below, let me know your favorite parts, your least favorite parts, and of course, I want to know what you guys thought about Noah's death, not just physically and, the way it looked in the series and how gruesome it was, but mentally, how did it affect you, as far as losing a character who is really brand new. Like, he was created in this episode, or in this season. He was ended in this season. So as far as that, what does that bring to mind? Like, how does that affect you guys, and what did you want to see from his character? Do you care? Do you not care? All those questions about Noah's very unfortunately short-lived existence in the series. So please comment below, let me know, and thanks for watching.